Of the Sunday Standard there, Benji, we're dealing with NASA's grant plan to bag 9 million votes. And that's a story that continues on page 19 of the paper about the strategy that NASA has to ensure that it secures more votes than Jubilee. Yeah. And it is sad, we'll get into this, but it is very sad that as opposed to trying to come out and tell the electorate the issues you're standing for, you're going to tell them their strategy, first of all, to win the election, without the electorate not knowing. But NASA's grant plan, on the front page there, they're expecting 2.2 million votes from Western by virtue of Musalia Mudavadi, apparently. Yeah. From Lower Eastern, 1.7 million votes, virtue of Kalonzo Musyoka. Rift Valley, 200,000 votes, virtue of Isaac Ruto. And Nyanza's 1.7 million votes, virtue of Raila Odinga. And that estimate there brings in 9.1 million votes, as opposed to 7.2 million votes that they estimate Jubilee will be getting. Let's talk numbers. Is the strategy working? So
the unfortunate part about this strategy, Michelle, if you look at it carefully, I don't know if we can put it up for our viewers there because I have a camera here. So this assembly is basically tribes. Mm-hmm. So Luya in Western, Luo, Nyanza, Ukambani, Kalenjin. So this is what we must break away from. And we are talking philosophically here. Right. The assembly of tribes, the polarization that comes with it, the division up of the country. This is the reality, but this is the politics that we must stop. And so, to answer your question, a lot of things are up at play here. Obviously, the National Super Alliance and even ODM alone, footprint-wise, has the biggest representation nationwide. Mm-hmm. However, there are issues. For example, Isaac Ruto, his own re-election might be in jeopardy because he is in a very bitter struggle against the deputy president, who is, in this crazy politics, the supremo, who has a lot more resources, who is also a very tough guy and who will not brook any nonsense from Governor Ruto. Mm. And so this is not guaranteed. The Ruto vote is not guaranteed. Also, on these other two,
hold on, let's just go back to the Ruto vote not being guaranteed, because in the Rift Valley, voters are seemingly split right down the middle now, with Isaac Ruto entering NASA. He's also been a very vocal critic of the Jubilee administration, yes, seemingly trying to break away those votes. Initially, the speculation was that he'd moved about 1 million votes.
There is a revolt, Michelle, I must agree, in the Rift Valley for the last at least 2 years, especially the South Rift. But this revolt, I don't know if it has led to a perceived loss of power, because the optics are very important in politics, as you know. And right. So on the actual day of the National Super Alliance launch at Uhuru Park, did you notice that by coincidence, President Uhuru and Ruto happened to be together? And did you see the crowds they got in Juja, Ruiru area? Mm. That's not by accident. And so again, and I've said this before, the misperformance by Jubilee, the underwhelming performance, their own inability to meet their own scorecard, their own goals, would have resulted, for example, Michelle, in them setting up nominations and people not attending. Right. But what you saw in the Jubilee nominations was the kind of queues, and I'm curious to look at the ODM ones today, the kind of queues that you saw with Jubilee looked like a general election. Mm. So again, we are a peculiar people. We practice a politics that really doesn't make sense. Right. And having said all of that, the revolt that I was talking about in both the backyards of Honorable Mudavadi and Honorable Kalonzo might not mean that you get the turnout that is projected on these numbers. In
fact, where do you draw the line between, because these are just projected numbers, yeah, where do you draw the line between politicians and aspirants who can command large cheering crowds and those who are able to turn those crowds into numbers in the ballot box?
Fantastic.